A lot of things went wrong for the Florida Gators on Thursday night against the Utes. We're going to talk about some of those and some things that did go right here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Monday or sad Monday, whatever. It's not a victory Monday. We know that. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers bet $5, get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but a few of the best contributors from Florida versus Utah were true freshmen. You know, it helps really with recruiting freshmen as well nowadays. NIL, if you're not signed up with Florida Victorious and you would like to save 20% off your first month, use promo code LOCKED to save 20% with Florida Victorious, or your first month with Florida Victorious. Getting into the game itself, Florida lost to Utah. Yes, it was a horrible performance, and I will talk about this again. I've said this now. I don't care too much about the loss. I care about how they lost. Like, for me, offensively, I understand the approach of if Utah has numbers in the box, we throw the ball. Like, if we have 5 offensive linemen and a tight end and a running back is running to that side, and so you got center, right guard, right tackle, and tight end, and they have 5 defenders on that side, then we're not going to run there because we know we're going to lose that just head count. The issue with that, because that was pretty much what happened. When Utah had more players in the box, Florida didn't really run. The issue with that is that the 2023 Florida Gators aren't going to win many football games trying to throw the football like that. Graham Mertz had what? 50 dropbacks? Because I think he had 1 or 2 scrambles as well as 4 or 5 sacks, 44 pass attempts, 50-ish dropbacks. That's not how you win football games. I get it. Throwing the football is how you win football games. Graham Mertz throwing the football 50 times is not how you win football games. And like Graham Mertz, he played about as expected. Statistically, it was, most passing yards of his career, a lot of pass attempts, shows fit, yes. But he played about as expected for me. I expected him to take care of the football. The 1 interception was off of Ricky Pearsall. So I expected him to take care of the football. He took care of the football. Didn't expect him to take many shots downfield. He had a very low average depth of target, a lot of screens and quick passes. Quick game was there, or at least that's what they were throwing. And just don't screw it up. And that's what he did. Like, was he bad when pressure came in? Yes, in the sense of he just gets hit and he cannot escape pressure. However, the offensive line needs to step up in both the run and passing game. I understand it's hard to judge the run game because when they ran it, it wasn't great. But running the football is something that you have to get into a rhythm for. And they just couldn't because they didn't run the football. So it's really hard to get into a rhythm. So I'm not really saying that the run game was bad. It wasn't effective in the very few opportunities they had. So offensive line needs to step up in the run game and the passing game. Hopefully Kingsley Aguakin can get right and other players can just, we have had quite a few players on the Florida Gators offensive line that were just recently cleared and just recently cleared to play and activated there. So, yeah, this is going to be an offensive line that gets better over time. It's hard to get worse than what we saw. Pass protection, Early on, especially, I think they did a pretty good job. I think out the gates, pass protection was solid. Run game again. Whenever they were given chances, it didn't work well. I think for most of us, it was clear that the top receivers on this team, or actually, I don't care if it's clear to most of us. It's clear to me that the top receivers on this team are Ricky Pearsall, Caleb Douglas, and Marcus Burke. Okay? Those are the three top wide receivers. Route running, the catch, those three. But at the same time, Eugene Wilson III was the most dynamic playmaker to get the ball there. And you could tell he's got that different speed because you can also see, hey, when he touches the ball, you're instantly like, oh, is he going to turn this into a big play? You don't feel that with every player. But with Eugene Wilson, something about him touching the ball is just electrifying, even if he's not doing anything great. He needs to get some things under control. Specifically, I believe it was the end around that he could have had a considerably larger gain, but he just sped past his blocker, and that screwed things up a little bit. So I will say that, yeah, the top three wide receivers are Ricky Pearsall, Caleb Douglas, and Marcus Burke, but Eugene Wilson III is the most dynamic playmaker that actually got to touch the ball on Thursday night. So he's got to be on the field more. It's going to come at the expense of probably Caleb or Marcus. Like, it's going to come at the expense of those, not Ricky, but Eugene Wilson has to be the guy there. Or maybe it should come at the expense of Ricky. Just like he comes off the field, put Eugene in the slot, and just be like, okay, Ricky, you rest, and we'll put a different dynamic playmaker out there. I personally am just curious to see what happens with the tight end room as we move further into the season, because Keon Zipper is out for the year. Everybody was told and everybody said this whole offseason, Arlis Boardingham is going to be a huge part of this offense. He's going to play a ton of snaps. He got banged up. I don't know if he was cleared or not. He was the bottom tight end on the depth chart. He tweeted like Friday that he's healthy and good to go. So I don't know if injury had anything to do with it. But we were expecting a lot of Arlis Boardingham, and we saw no Arlis Boardingham. We didn't expect Keon Zipper, obviously. He's not playing. He's out. Tony Livingston played, I think it was like 4 snaps, got targeted once, caught it, and slipped after the catch, and I don't think he played after that. Jonathan Odom, most well-rounded tight end on the team there. Okay, that one's easy for me. Dante Sanders, look, last year, Florida had 0 good tight ends that were playing. Or outside of, I think Jonathan Odom, I think Keon Zipper is a good pass catcher. I think Dante Sanders is kind of just there now. Like I was hoping for a big jump from what we saw last year to the Utah game, and I didn't see it in the Utah game. We'll see as time goes on what happens with it, but it wasn't great. So last year, tight end room was bad, and the depth were mostly freshmen. So I understand not wanting to give them the opportunities, but at this point, Dante Sanders had the worst performance of the tight ends out there. And I will say, yes, he was given that 4th and 3 shovel, which I understand that there's like the blocking on it was bad. Who knows? It could have worked if there was good blocking. To me, if we're talking about being a process-oriented organization, shoveling the ball to Dante Sanders, bad process, even if it works out. Like what happened on the 4th and 3 with the shovel is what should have happened when you shovel the ball to Dante Sanders. I don't remember seeing much of Dante Sanders in the second half, or not a ton of Dante Sanders. I remember seeing Hayden was out there for a bit. Hayden Hansen, of course, our guy over here at Locked On Gators, played a ton in the second half. Had his moments there. He got his first career catch, which was cool. The first snap that I saw him on the field for, he blocked someone to the ground, which was awesome. I need to know what they're going to do at tight end here, because Dante Sanders was ineffective. Arliss Boardingham didn't play. Jonathan Odom had a great game. Hayden Hansen didn't play consistently. Tony Livingston played 4 snaps, screwed up once, and got yanked. There's no rhyme or reason here right now. I just want to see something fill out and something kind of solidify in the tight end room here. We'll see. It was just a cluster, you know what? That whole Thursday game. We're going to talk about the defense here, which look better than last year, right? And just the actual play was much improved. We'll talk about that in a second. Before we talk about the defense, now it's time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. It has to, if we're talking about a game changer of the week, I think there's 2 options, but there's one good option. And I think that's Shamar James. What he did for the Florida Gators defense was 13 tackles, tackle and a half for loss or something. It was a great game. Shamar James changed that defensive performance a bit, right? Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good, which is wild. They make non-alcoholic beers that taste good and are full of flavor and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. Constantly releasing limited edition experimental styles to add to their variety, and you can find Athletic Brewing Co.'s non-alcoholic beers at a store near you or buy it online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off of your first order online with Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Talked about the offense, talking about the defense. The most important thing here in terms of the Florida Gators defensive performance against the Utah Utes, the calls need to get in quicker. Whatever the defensive call is, it needs to get in quicker than it did on Thursday night. Because far too often the camera would pan back and forth. And far too often the camera would pan to Austin Armstrong, who's talking. He's looking and he's talking and signaling. And while he's doing that, the defense is looking to the side, looking to the sideline, looking for what their assignment is. And the camera pans out. And Utah's set. Utah's just completely, they've got the O-line and getting into their stands. Whoever was in at QB at the time was getting ready. That's going to kill you. And it hurt a few times because the call would come in, they'd get set up. And then I remember there was one where Princely set up on the outside shoulder of the left tackle, sprinted around to the right tackle, and they snapped the ball before he got set because the communication there was just a complete train wreck. Pre-snap. Pre-snap from coach to defense, complete chaos. In the word, I'm team chaos, not that kind of chaos. I'm team controlled chaos. That was just disgusting. They got to figure out something for the defense to get the call quicker and get in position quicker. Okay. There were a few missteps on the field, a few little screw ups on the field, but a lot of that came on coaching, honestly, defensively. The preparedness, they were not prepared to go out there and play every single snap, and the calls coming in too late. And I do have some personal issues with things I have no problem dropping your jack linebacker, so Princely Umanmielen, into coverage. I definitely hate him playing man coverage. That shouldn't happen because Princely's not supposed to do that. He's built to work in the trenches and occasionally drop back. He's not built to turn and run with someone. That's not putting your players in the position to succeed. And that's your job as a coach. If you're putting him in a spot where he's going to be bad, why would you expect good things to happen? So that, things like that. But for the most part, defense played well. When they were given their assignments early enough, we'll say. Not early, but early enough, they were pretty good. First play, TD was a screw up in cover 1. RJ Moten bit on the crosser. They threw it deep. Stuff like that. Yeah, sucks. Stuff like Princely looping around. Princely in man coverage on the running back for a trick play. Things like that just sucked. and need to be corrected. I've watched the game now, unfortunately, 3 times, which just was miserable every single time. But for my second and third watches of the game on defense, I tried to look a lot at the defensive, like the pass rush plan, because we knew there'd be stunts and twists and there was everything we promised. I will say another thing that I had an issue with there was I don't like seeing Caleb Banks stunting outside of Princely. I don't like I just don't like seeing Caleb stunting outside of Princely because that wastes so much time that Caleb Banks cannot then really rush the passer. He has to get in unblocked there because if you slow him down even a little bit with how long that takes to develop, he's not getting there. Why it wasn't I know that it did happen with Princely stunting, but I could not stand it when I saw that. Just Caleb Banks looping around Princely. And like I understand wanting to put him in a spot where he might be unblocked. It's just really risky to loop him around like that again, because all it has to do is just someone has to correct a little bit and they're going to slow him down. And with how long it's taking him to loop around, you slow him down even the slightest bit, and there's no pressure there. None at all. 2 players for me in the defensive front 4 need to step up. It's Princely, Umon Mielin, and literally anyone else. Anybody else. Because Princely's like he's the jack linebacker, he's supposed to be the primary pass rusher, he's the guy on the edge. There needs to be another threat. If that's on the edge, great. Awesome. Then you've got 2 edge guys coming around. Awesome. If that's on the interior, great. Awesome. Then they're really probably going to have to double team him just because centers and guards tend to be a little bit worse with pass protection. So they're really going to have to double team if you got a good pass rusher there. Princely ran into a lot of double teams, which is also another reason that I'm saying someone else needs to step up. There were a lot of times where Princely was getting blocked by, or chipped at least, by the running back or the tight end, and that was slowing him down. And you can do that when there's only one pass rusher that's threatening. Granted, I don't think he found a ton of success when he did get one-on-one opportunities. There were a couple. He had 2 or 3 pressures on Thursday. There were a few times, and there were a few times where you could see him just beating his man immediately, but it was not consistently enough for him. And I get it. It's hard to get into a pass rush groove as well when you're constantly getting double teamed, but something has to give at some point for the Florida Gators here. We need to see improvement. Off-ball linebackers did impress me. Shamar James went off. Huge monster game. We expected that from him. Scooby Williams impressed the hell out of me on Thursday night. Okay? Scooby Williams, number 17, impressed the hell out of me on Thursday night. We saw him last year replace Ventrell Miller against South Florida, and his job was, hey, you're going to have to communicate a lot. And it didn't go well for the entire defense. On Thursday night, he was, just playing well. Just generally playing well. Very vocal, both in terms of him having to turn around and communicate. I know I don't know what the call is, but there were quite a couple times I remember seeing him turn around and kind of like rub his belly. And that was whatever shift or assignment that is. I saw him do that a couple times. I saw him communicating a lot. And after the play, I'd see him talking, celebrating, doing it. So Scooby Williams, just great game in between the whistles. Great game out of the whistles. So off-ball linebackers impressed the hell out of me. Depth was evident. Teradja Mitchell had a good game. Derek Wingo had a good game. And again, Manning Nunnery had a good game. These were not guys that got to play a ton of snaps because Scooby and Shamar played a lot of snaps. But it was a good linebacker game. It was a great game from a lot of guys. And there's obviously a lot of bad things in this game. Off-ball linebacker was not a concern, not an issue for me after that, or in that Thursday game against the Utah Utes. We're going to talk about just some coaching issues that I had. Before we do that, football season is kicking off this week for the NFL, Thursday night football. We're back. But football is about to kick off for the NFL, did kick off for college. FanDuel is giving you, listen to this, you bet $5, new customers, bet $5, you get 200 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. Okay? If you're not a new customer, guess what? You bet $5, you will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. There's something for everyone. Okay? Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you won't want to miss. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. This last segment is not necessarily too much on the offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball. This is more just coaching drove me up a freaking wall. Okay? Because a lot of the team came out flat. A lot of the guys just did not look like they were firing from the moment they stepped onto the field. That is unacceptable. Okay? Look, I understand. It's not the easiest thing on the planet to work your tail off and then when it's go time to be full go. A lot of people have done that. Like even just to make it the biggest analogy that I can, people that you have a really big work assignment coming up and you just pound at it training wise, and then when it comes up, you're like, I'm exhausted, but I got to get through this. I get that. Like that's the thing that everybody goes through, or almost everybody goes through at some point in their lives. They're just pounding at it and then being kind of exhausted and maybe coming out flat. You don't do that on your first big work assignment. Okay? The first game of the season, you can't come out flat. That is unacceptable. Like coming out flat in week 1 is just pathetic. No other way around it. Okay? That's just a failure by the coaching staff. Simple as that. Like last year, again, I bring up the point. Vanderbilt last year, for me, was the game where Florida came out flatter than any other game that season. At least you can say it was cold weather on the road after most of a long season. All those reasons are bad, but at least there are other reasons. This one is week 1. I get it, you're on the road in Utah, but week 1 you come out flat. That just sucks. That's just a horrible reflection of this team. Simple as that. As far as on the field coaching, I'm getting more on board with maybe Florida should hire an offensive coordinator. You're never going to hear me go, Florida needs to hire a new offensive coordinator definitively after week 1 of the season. But it was rough. Okay. I understand last year, analytically, the offense was great. Very good in terms of like yards per play, all that stuff. Sure. It was inconsistent. Thursday, I don't know. I understand it was like, oh, like when they stack the box, we need to throw the football. That's not gonna work every single time. You have to just go, hey, we're gonna run it anyway. Because guess what? Our guys are great at generating yards after contact. We're gonna give them a chance anyway. We're just gonna give the football to our guys and let them make plays. Got to do something. I do like throwing to them when the run game wasn't really something that Florida was looking to do. It's like, oh, you're stacking the box, then we're going to put our running backs in the flat and we're going to chuck it to them. But even then, those were inconsistent, those opportunities. There were 2 times that I remember just constantly replaying in my head of Montreal Johnson in the flat and Graham Mertz throwing kind of a high ball, and Montreal should have come down with it and didn't. And then again, there was one where Montreal was like right next to the pocket. Graham Mertz tried to get it to him and couldn't. And it was just like that. There's stuff like that that also can't happen. You have to have the easy completion there. Wide open. You have to be able to make that. It's just stuff like that that drives me crazy. But maybe you look at an OC. It's not going to happen I know that Russ Callaway is someone that people are talking about. Used to be the OC at Samford. My lord, that will always screw me up. Used to be the offensive coordinator at Samford and did a good job. He's not gonna be offensive play caller anytime soon. Maybe you look at it late in the season, but I there's just don't see a way in which Billy Napier's like, oh, week one, yeah, we'll raise the white flag with me as the offensive coordinator right now. I don't see that happening. Especially because Russ Callaway would have to at least change some things about this offense, maybe just even tendency wise, that might not be beneficial here. Oh, also, so I completely forgot the 2 number 3 penalty. Stupidest thing I've ever seen. Stupidest thing I've ever seen. How do you have I understand how you have 2 number 3s on the field because Jason Marshall Jr., Eugene Wilson III. Jason Marshall is supposed to be flipping to 33 on special teams. Why? I don't know if this is like a rule that has to be a rule in college football, but why is the defensive player the one changing his number? That doesn't make sense to me because the offensive player is already on the sideline. And after that punt return, we're probably going to commercial break. Why doesn't the offensive player just change into his jersey when you're on like 3rd down, punt it, and he fields the punt or he does whatever? Then when you hit that little timeout, change jersey again. It's stuff like that I just don't really get. Drives me up a wall. Can't happen. There's quite a few things that went wrong on Thursday. I will say I think a lot of them are things that are fixable. It's a matter of will you fix them? That will remains to be seen. But I think that Florida Gators fans, a lot of them are on social media, like at least they're easily fixable mistakes. At least they're easily this mistakes. They're easily recognizable mistakes. They are fixable mistakes. You have to be willing to put in the work to fix those mistakes. If you're the coaching staff, you need to identify, hey, maybe this wasn't just a bad day. Maybe we're just bad at this right now. Whatever it is, you need to identify the issues and correct them. They are easily fixable issues. Will you fix them? We'll have to wait and see. But I mean, look, thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen every day. I'm going to be in a mood while we talk about this game because I'm pissed about the performance. We'll be back tomorrow, talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. And I will see you all tomorrow.